Hello and welcome to the Rockies Now podcast. It is the 92nd episode of the show. This is, of course, a Colorado Rockies podcast. With me today is my good friend and co host, Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
Upset that the NLCS is now one game away from being
Uh,
over, but other than that, I'm doing pretty good.
yeah. All we know is pain over here in the Rocky Mountain region, and where Tom is at in Chicago. Definitely rooting for Adam's Mariners. Adam is not joining us tonight; he is busy, but also going to be watching the game, of course. So we decided, we're gonna just have Tom and myself on for tonight and to talk some baseball here. So um, to kick things off with some Major League Baseball updates again with the postseason. Dodgers now up 3-0 in the series against the Brewers, and starting off with that, Tom, it's just like this is the Dodgers. I'm not saying they lost games on purpose during the regular season, but of course, it's kind of like the Chiefs in the NFL. They could care less about the season. What they're really playing for is the postseason, and this is really it for the Dodgers, and they're showing it. And I feel like they played a lot of people, and they tricked a lot of people thinking, "Oh, the Dodgers are not that great, and this is a down year for them. Clayton Kershaw's retiring, so it's going to be the Brewers or the Cubs or the Padres here this year." And here we are. The Dodgers are right on the doorstep of going back to the World Series for the second straight year. Yeah, I mean, gotta, even though we hate the Dodgers, obviously, as Rockies fans, and I would probably say majority of America hates the Dodgers, but you got to give them respect. I mean, for what they've been able to do, there's so much depth in LA, and for Milwaukee, Tom, I mean, massive disappointment. I mean, it's good to go that you're going to the NLCS, but for the Brewers, so many years they've been trying to get to the World Series, and they've had a couple matchups with the Dodgers. I mean, going back to 2018 when the Brewers beat us in the NLDS, and they played the Dodgers, and I think that went to 7 games. But for Milwaukee, man, it's just like they don't have the depth like the Dodgers do, like you were saying earlier, Tom. Mezurowski, he's great, but you can't rely on just Peralta and Mezurowski to help your rotation. And there's some solid defensive players on the Brewers, and you have some names there, but it's just not as popular, I should say, in Milwaukee than the Dodgers. So, Tom, looks like the Dodgers are probably going to go back to the World Series.
Well, never say never. It ain't over till it's over. To be
True.
optimistic, but again, you know, as well. I mean, is it is unfortunate, but we'll see how it goes. The only thing is,
Hmm.
we just got to see how many games the ALCS goes for. It's 2-1 now in favor of the Mariners, so we just got to wait and
Josh
see.
Naylor just hit a home run.
Right, I saw that,
Let's
and
go.
we'll see how things shake out for the rest of the series. But for the
Hmm.
Brewers, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, good for them. They won the division back-to-back years. They made the playoffs. Again, it's all about competition, trying to compete with the teams with much higher payrolls and greater financial resources, and that's always been the biggest challenge for a smaller market team like the Brewers. Again, we'll wait and see. It's just a wait and see game, but
Hmm.
all in all, it is nice again twofold. One, you get to see it is kind of a cool mix because you have two teams that have never won a World Series, one that hasn't
Hmm.
won a World Series since the early 90s, the other's trying to do something that hasn't been done in 25 years, which is repeat as champs.
Hmm.
So again, you could say we're going to see some pretty interesting feats regardless of who wins out of these four teams.
Hmm.
Just got to watch and hope it plays out and hope it's exciting.
Yeah, and it is going to be interesting because like last year you had in the World Series you had the Yankees and the Dodgers, and it kind of worked for both time zones. You had the Eastern time slot when you had the World Series over there. It kind of worked with the Western time slot when the games were in New York. Now it's like if it's like the Mariners and Dodgers. Now you're going to have to compete. Well, on the Eastern side, it's going to be super late for them. So maybe for the TV reasons, it wouldn't be the best for TV ratings if it were Mariners and Dodgers, which I would like to see. But I think obviously for a lot of people, they had the Dodgers and the Blue Jays heading into the championship series round, um, and moving to the Mariners and Blue Jays. I mean, we're seeing some really good baseball. Of course, we saw a really good Game 3 for the Blue Jays. Felt like the Mariners were. I mean, the Mariners they were doing their job in the first 2 games in a hostile environment in Toronto, and now we saw a flip flop of that yesterday in Game 3. I mean, Julio Rodriguez, man, he's been able to got that big home run in yesterday's game, early, but that didn't do much, unfortunately, for the Mariners. But, um, you know, Tom, who do you think is going to come out in that series? Do you think the Blue Jays are going to hang around a little bit, or do you think the Mariners are going to do this pretty well in 5 or 6 games here?
It wouldn't surprise me if the series goes back to Toronto. I just got a feeling that it's not going to get finished in Seattle. Again, we talked about this there. Both teams have well-built pitching staffs. Both teams have solid offenses. I just saw that Santander is out for the rest of the postseason. I'm not sure if everybody else saw that.
Yep.
So that's a considerable – that's not obviously a death nail that would destroy their lineup, but he's a player you don't want to miss. And I just saw also the Blue Jays announced Kevin Gausman will be the Game 5 starter. Like I said before, both teams are well built with pitching and good lineups, so they can counter the Dodgers. If in fact the Dodgers do beat the Brewers in the to sweep them. I don't know. It's just I just gotta say, regardless of who wins the American League, they can I would think compete with the Dodgers. We'll just have to wait and see. But I think again, I don't want to get into talk to specifics as far as the CBA negotiations and who baseball is rooting for to win, and of course who the union's rooting for to win. We'll get into. We don't need to talk about the business no same nonsense until it comes over. I also just saw an article pivoting away from the World Series over here. According to reports, Aaron Judge does not need off-season surgery to repair his right elbow. So for Yankee fans, if you haven't seen it already, which probably quite a lot of them have, that is good news for you. And of course, good news for the game because he's a superstar you don't want to see out for an extended period of time.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, again, sigh of relief for a lot of Yankees fans. And they're still going to have injuries, Tom, going into next year. And talking about the Yankees because, Aaron Boone was on, I believe, yesterday or today, doing interviews and everything, talking about that. So if you're a Yankees fan, you're pleased, but also too, like you got some work to do this offseason in free agency and try to get your players healthy. Rodon, I think he's injured, right, Tom?
I don't know for what I know. Every player goes in the offseason with some kind of knick-knack injury. I'm not sure. I didn't see this. If he's injured, I did not see the severity of it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you, Aaron Boone, he's got some work. Obviously, he's got to work with Cashman gives it.
Yeah.
So Cash, I'm not saying either one is on the hot seat in any particular, degree of colder versus hotter hot seat. But the pressure's on for those guys because the Steinbrenner family is spending a lot of money. But again, you could say both New York teams are spending a lot of money because I know Stevie Cohen is definitely Uncle Steve, as you call Uncle Stevie. Uncle Stevie is definitely his 5-year plan is not working out so well.
No,
so if I was a New York fan of either team, I wouldn't be blowing a gasket, but the veins would start popping out of my forehead.
Hey Tom, they do have Jackson Dart with the Giants, man.
Well,
and of course, and they do have a former Bronco on that team too. And if for those who are watching, you might have saw this. Was it last Thursday when it was the Giants? And who are they playing? I forget who they were playing, but was it Jackson Dart got injured on that one play, and then Russell Wilson came out and immediately gets booed, and then only gets 2 snaps. In the first snap, Russell Wilson throws it in the ground, and he had, I'm not too fond of the Giants. I don't know much about their roster, but their O-line doesn't look too great. But Russell Wilson just threw a ball in the dirt in the first. Everyone just booed, and then I think the next possession for the Giants, Jackson Dart came out on the field, and he just got a big round of applause. So, but hey, New York fans, you do have Jackson Dart, and then for Jets fans, oh my goodness, I mean, they could have beaten our Broncos on Sunday, but for them, they're now 0-5, 0-6. So New York not having a great time, Tom, or Philadelphia for that matter, because the Eagles not playing well, the Phillies. Right. They got eliminated. So, and then, I mean, you do have hockey and, and the basketball is coming up. So, there's these bigger cities on the East Coast that are not having the greatest time, Tom.
I'm not, and please, to all those cities, we're not trying to rag on you. We're just trying to put,
I'm not, quote.
We're just trying to have some pleasant conversation. There's good news and bad news. I mean, we're in no shape, more or less shape for the wear than you guys. I mean, Colorado and Chicago aren't in any bad worse shape. I will say, it was funny. I was watching the U.S. Open with my family when I was up in Wisconsin, and
Yeah, yeah,
I just thought it was kind of celebrities and athletes show up. I just thought it was kind of funny to see Russell Wilson and his wife kind of watching the U.S. Open, but he
yeah.
can't get booed there because you got to stay
No,
quiet. Because you got to stay quiet.
yeah, yeah. And I told Tom this right before we got into our little studio here. That Bet MGM, it's hard to pronounce that correctly. They tweeted out, I think there was this today, and we retweeted it on our X page. And by the way, if you don't follow us on X, feel free to do so. We have over 1,000 followers over there. One of the things that they listed, and again, we retweeted it, so you can check that out. But the first time Joe Flacco, which is obviously Thursday Night Football tonight, Joe Flacco, the first time Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers played against each other was in 2009, and one of the things they mentioned was the Rockies were a good baseball team, and so all I put on the social medias was heard. So there's that for you, football fans and Rockies fans out there. So hopefully the Rockies are good again soon. But Tom, jumping into before we get into our next segment here, and for Rockies returning and leaving, we did have somewhat quiet breaking news, if you want to call it that, Tom, and that was released by Thomas Harding on X earlier today, mentioning that the Rockies are going to have their finalists for who they're going to hire. They're going to have their meetings with them next week, and so Tom, it's going to be probably toward the start or middle part of the World Series when these interviews are going to be taking place, Tom. And I think the Rockies are probably going to have their guy by the end of next week or early the following week. And to list some of the names that were mentioned, not as finalists, but were mentioned earlier the last couple of days that were interviewed by the Rockies. This is a good sign for a lot of Rockies fans and for us that are Rockies fans that the Rockies are keeping their word that they are going to look outside the organization. And one of those names is ex-Astros GM James Click. He was one of the guys that they interviewed and probably the most popular one on that list. I think Matt Coleman was another one from the Cleveland Guardians who was, I think he's correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, isn't he like a vice president for the Guardians or the assistant GM?
I think he's assistant G. I believe he's assistant GM.
You're right. And then I forget his name, somebody on the Royals. He's also assistant GM there. So you're kind of looking at, okay, the Rockies are probably going to get a GM here, but we're seeing a lot of, head or, president of baseball operations names out there. So it's possible. And I told this to Tom that it's possible the Rockies hire a guy that's going to kind of do both, kind of like what Bill Schmidt was doing all along. He was the head of baseball operations / GM. But I think we mentioned a couple times already on this podcast in the last few weeks that we would like to see two different jobs, two different people come in for different jobs. One person as a president of baseball operations, then he hires the GM. That could be the case here too. I don't know. Maybe, should James Click be the guy for the Rockies, which would be amazing hire. And I think Rockies fans should be excited about this because Tom, I've seen so many, these tweets that from Rockies fans, they claim they're Rockies fans, but they're like, oh, it's not going to make a difference, because Dick Monfort. Well, I think we've mentioned already, again, a couple of times already, that we're starting to see maybe Dick Monfort start to step away a little bit. We're starting to see Walker Monfort. Of course, he's taken the place of Greg Fiesel officially by the end of this year. But Walker Monfort, in some ways, is kind of acting as president of baseball operations by, doing these interviews. He's, pretty much the main guy doing all this stuff. And now there was another article released by Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post today saying that the Rockies are going to hire a guy that's going to be basically a strategy guy for marketing and revenue and for analytics, which is something that I have not heard before. I'm not sure about you, Tom, but do you think that's something that Rockies fans should look out for a guy that's for strategy when it comes to revenue or for analytics department? Do you think that's completely brand new, or do you think that's going to be kind of tied into the same job?
Well, I would think they're going to be tied in for separate because one has to do with business, one has to do with on-field product. And I think when you look at you said it was Matt Foreman, correct?
Yeah, Matt Foreman. Yeah,
he's the assistant GM and executive vice president.
Mm-hmm.
He works under Matt Foreman, who is the GM.
Yeah, and guys, I mean, these are great organizations. I mean, you have James Click, who currently is in the Blue Jays organization. He went from the Astros to the Blue Jays a couple years back, I believe. And by the way, guys, if you don't know, if you're watching or listening, James Click, was the GM for the Astros when they went to the World Series in 2021. When they played against the Braves, of course, they lost that, but then they won the World Series, of course, a year later,
Mhm.
in 2022.
Mhm.
And very good resume. I mean, this is a guy that if you're a Rockies fan, you really want this guy. And of course, Tom, there's always that possibility the Rockies, go with a Thad Levine, which, in my personal opinion, wouldn't be a bad hiring. But I think for a lot of us, we want somebody that's fresh and brand new, that brings new ideas, that's had success, that's maybe won a World Series. I mean, who wouldn't want that? I mean, if you had a guy, I feel like the Rockies should already know this. I mean, if you want a Thad Levine, if you had Thad Levine versus James Click, I'm taking James Click every single day. I mean, this guy has a World Series ring. Been a couple World Series in the recent years. Thad Levine, yeah, he had some good success in Minnesota. In 8 years, he brought them to the playoffs 4 times. But the thing is, Tom, um, he didn't win any postseason series in his tenure there. They made the playoffs, but they never won any series, if I'm correct. So 4 times.
Mhm.
And so if you're the Rockies, you're like, okay, well, for Thad Levine, that would be a good thing because you get back to the playoffs. Well, for Rockies fans, ultimately your goal is to win the World Series, not just to get it back to the playoffs. And I feel like Thad Levine would be more of a Dick Monfort hiring than anything else. But again, we're seeing Walker Monfort kind of take those shoes from his dad and saying, "Hey, Dad, let me do the interviews, let me do the job. You need to step away." And I think we're kind of seeing that, and hopefully the Rockies make a good decision here in the next week or so. And the thing is, I'm glad that they didn't rush into the decision. And they do have finalists. It's not like, oh, they have one or two. No, they have. It sounds like more than 3 finalists, Tom. And so if you're the Rockies, you want to make sure that this is a decision not only for next year but for future seasons, Tom, because the Rockies, they got to get their development right because their development hasn't been the track record for the development has not been great, Tom. And of course, in the last 3 or 4 years, the Rockies have been the laughing stock of baseball. So you need a guy that's going to turn around and build a winning organization because the Rockies, frankly, Tom, have not been a winning organization really since they were incepted into the league. So you're trying to turn that around and create a new identity of the Rockies. And I don't know. I don't know if they're going to, if the Rockies are ever going to bring in a new uniform or new logo or whatever, but this is a start here. And I think this is step one is to get a new guy, get new ideas. But I think every Rockies fan should have some sort of excitement for this.
Well, it's a fresh voice. Thad Levine would be a familiarity hiring, considering he was with the
Yeah.
team for six
It would be
years.
a safe
But at
pick
the
for
sa-
them. Yeah.
but well, not necessarily a safe bet, but a familiar
Hmm.
face. Either way, I would if that's the candidate pool, if that's the top three, I would hire either Click or um shoot, I'm drawing a blank here.
Foreman,
No, Foreman was the GM. What was oh shoot.
the third guy from the Royals.
No, from the Guardians. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
Guardians. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Um,
either
it
yeah,
was yeah.
either way, but because
Hmm.
I want to try to stick away from the familiarity side of it, I
Yep.
would just rather go with someone who has recent success. And again, both are teams that have not just recent current playoff success, but over the last several years. So, but
Right.
again,
Yeah.
the key thing is we both can agree the timeline is right because you want to have somebody in place before the World Series ends.
Hmm. Yeah. And you do look at a lot of fans are saying, why didn't the Rockies do this earlier? And again, like you want to do the interview. The interview process is long. I mean, they probably had. I mean, we don't know. We're not in the room, but they probably had multiple, maybe hundreds of candidates for all we know. But for them to go and have these interviews from other organizations that have had success, recent success, but also like these teams that have similar markets as the Rockies, like Cleveland, Kansas City. Of course, Toronto's a large market team, but Houston. I mean, Houston. They're not as big. Of course, they're a lot bigger now, but years ago they weren't as big as some of these big major market teams. But then, I think was it Drew Goodman on his podcast? I think last week he was talking about how he had a conversation with Andrew Friedman, who is the, president of baseball operations for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and Friedman literally said, "I would love to be, the Rockies would be a dream job for me." And this is coming from Andrew Friedman, Tom, who is probably going to send his team back to the World Series. Andrew Friedman considered the Rockies a dream job, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. There's a lot of people in the baseball business consider the Rockies as a dream job, and that's why I'm wondering is like and it makes me excited because like James Click might see this as like, hey, I'm with Toronto, but like if we win the World Series or if we don't, I want to go to Colorado. I'm going to turn that thing around. I'm going to get a World Series ring in Denver. And I think, Spilly on Drew Goodman's podcast mentioned that he talked to an executive, and he mentioned, I'm not sure if this is the word for word wording that he had on the show, but he basically said that this executive said that the Colorado is a sleeping giant. That if the Rockies can turn it around and hire the right people, if Walker Monfort can get the right guys in place, and we get a president of baseball operations, and he hires the right GM, and the analytics improves drastically, and everything is just turned over in the Rockies front office, the Rockies could be a sleeping giant, Tom, and that makes me very excited. And we do have our good friend Wild in the comments here on YouTube. He says, "Will finally going into the outside market, will they find the salary cost prohibitive and end up with the lower cost higher?" I think it's possible. Again, like that Levine is more of a, as you said, Tom, it's more familiarity. That's one thing that I feel like would be more of a Dick Monfort thing. But Tom, I feel like we're seeing a lot more Walker Monfort than Nick Monfort in a lot of these conversations, because again, I feel like Walker is more of this, and Walker's like, hey Dad, I'm gonna do this. But I think the Rockies are realizing, I think Dick Monfort is realizing, I need to step away from having my hands in baseball operations and give it to a guy that has fresh perspective, fresh eyes, and so yeah, I think we've talked about it many times already. It just, this needs to happen. The Rockies, if they want to turn this thing around, it's just the Rockies have to reset in the front office, and we've already seen multiple people leave the organization. Bill Schmidt, he's more than likely probably going to retire. And then Zach Rosenthal, he's still on the younger side. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to another organization and, maybe becomes an assistant GM somewhere else, or maybe a GM. Maybe some teams could use a GM like Zach Rosenthal. And, but this signals, Tom, that the Rockies are willing to change things up and go outside the organization. So I think that's something that, again, everyone should be excited for, especially Rockies fans.
Just gotta wait and see, because the reality of it is, I just, the last
Yeah.
comment I'll make is when it comes to what Andrew Friedman said and other executives said to Drew Goodman. There's only 30 jobs like this in professional sports. There's
Mhm.
only 30 GM, general manager jobs in baseball. And the fact is, if you can come here and deliver an organization its first World Series championship in a difficult place to play, such as Colorado, you're going to be remembered forever. I mean,
Mhm.
it's history after. And again, there's still 5 teams who have not won a ring yet.
Yeah.
It was 6 until 2 years ago.
Mhm.
But that's the thing. That's why it's so attractive. And these guys are competitive. They want a challenge. And if they get full autonomy, then why not?
Why not? So yeah, stay tuned to our Rockies Now Instagram pages for more information or more news, because again, breaking news could be
Wild,
happening.
Wild. You should definitely visit Coors Field if you have the chance.
100% Wild. Got to do it. It's going to be one of your best experiences as a baseball fan in general. I mean, I've been there, almost every single year since 2017, and of course, I should be going there more times, but again, busy life. But yeah, Coors Field, you're not going to regret it. I, let me see if I pull up my list here. But yeah, we appreciate you, Wild, for coming on in. Yeah, Theo wanted that challenge from Chicago,
And
and
the curse of the Billy Goat, like just like you did the curse of the Bambino.
there you go. Yeah. We are live here on X and YouTube, and we appreciate all of you who are tuning in. We are talking about the Rockies as we head into our second segment of tonight's show, talking about players who are going to be returning and potentially leaving the Rockies this year. And I'm going to start it off, Tom, with some of the players that I have like some question marks that are on my list here. I'm going to pull that up here. So there are a couple players, obviously, that are, there's one or two that are pretty obvious for me. I'm going to start off here. Obviously, Orlando Arcia, he's gone. He was a season acquisition from Atlanta. He was released, I believe, by the Braves early in the season. The Rockies picked him up. and did not do much for the Rockies. And so obviously Orlando Arcia, he's not going to be returning. I very, very much would be surprised if the Rockies were to entertain coming him. And again, Tom, I'm probably going to end up with this by saying this when I finish, but it really all depends on who the new guy is and what he's going to want on this team. And I'll be the first one to say here, just skipping to Chris Bryant. I think if the Rockies get like a guy like James Click or a guy that's from completely outside the organization and that has autonomy, I think Chris Bryant is gone by spring training 100%. I think the guy's probably going to want to, give younger players more opportunities, which is the way it should be. And unfortunately, it's unfortunate for Chris Bryant. I love Chris Bryant, but it was a bad hiring, or I should say a bad signing from the beginning. And obviously it was very much a Dick Monfort decision, as long as, and same thing with Bill Schmidt. So yeah, Orlando Arcia, he's not going to be coming back for me. For the Rockies, that's very much a guaranteed in many ways. Herman Marquez, I think this is probably the biggest name on the list that I have that's not going to be returning to the Rockies. I just think he, I believe he's 31 or turning 31. I think his time in Colorado has come to an end. I think he's going to want to explore the free agent market, get paid. But I wouldn't cancel out any possibility that he could get somewhat of a mini extension from the Rockies, depending, again, it all depends on who they hire. But I think Marquez is probably going to lead the free agent market. There hasn't been a lot of conversation about getting an extension from him. He had a pretty rough year this year. So I don't imagine him coming back unless if there's a contract there for Marquez to return. And then, nobody really in the bullpen for relief pitchers. I think we're going to see everybody come back in the bullpen, which leads us to some of the players that are going to be returning. So obviously, Braxton Fulford and Drew Romo, they're pre-arbitration eligible, and they're projected to be, I believe, right around 800, a little over 800,000. Correct me if I'm wrong with that, Tom. But obviously Tovar is not going anywhere. I think Kyle Farmer is going to be staying, Tom. I think he's going to come back. I think the Rockies really liked him. I know a lot of Rockies fans didn't really like him for him taking over, the second base spot or third base spot a little bit here in the season. But, it gives a little bit of a bridge for, potentially for a first baseman like Condon or third base, or, I don't know what's going to happen, or just a depth bench piece. But I would not be surprised if Kyle Farmer comes back. Tyler Estrada. Did Tyler Estrada have an option for 2026, Tom?
He has a mutual option.
Okay, so there's a possibility Estrada comes back. And again, he was out for majority of the year. As a matter of fact, I think somebody mentioned this the other day. It was kind of quite an interesting stat. But apparently Tovar and Estrada only played together 3 times this year, Tom, which is insane. But yeah, Estrada was hurt for a big chunk of the year, for majority of the year. Same as Tovar. But Estrada, there's an option for where he could come back. But there's an option there. And then I think Tyler Freeman, he's going to come back. He is arbitration eligible. Now, there's a possibility that the Rockies do, pass on Freeman, and then he goes to in the free agency. But he doesn't cost much, so I do imagine the Rockies are probably going to keep him back. Let me get to this comment here from Wild. If we take the KB salary out of the mix, how much is left in total salaries? Tom, I think you would probably, if you want to check that out while I talk here, you can, because the Rockies, they would have to pay for that, right? For KB. Yeah. And I don't know if the Rockies, it's the new guy might be like, you know what, we're going to eat it anyway. But that's a good question, Wild. That's a good question. Amador, obviously, he's going to be returning. He's probably going to start in the minor leagues, I would imagine. Warming Bernabel, he's pre-arbitration. So a bunch of these guys on this list are pre-arbitration eligible, like Bernabel, Blaine Krim, even though I don't think Blaine Krim is obviously, a part of the future, and I don't think he should be. He did have a decent, time in his, in September, did hit 5 home runs to finish off the season. Kyle Karros, same thing. Ryan Ritter, Aaron Schunk, and Michael Toglia are all pre-arbitration eligible, and they're projected to be, I believe that roughly what it says right here, 820,000. I think that's the right amount. And then outfielders, Chris Bryant, guaranteed $27 million, which is just insane and ridiculous. And then you have Brent Doyle, who is arbitration eligible. He's projected to be right around $3 million, according to Spotrac.com. I think he's going to come back. And then Mickey Moniak, I'm going to go out and say this. I think he's going to come back as well. I think the Rockies really like it. Again, who knows? Maybe the new guy will be like, you know what? We need to trade off Mickey Moniak. There's some value there, especially after the year he's had. We're going to send out Moniak. Yankees Fernandez, I think he's going to come back as well, give some competition in that right field spot. Jordan Beck, obviously, he's going to come back. I think he's been one of the bright pieces for this Rockies team, of course, in 2025, of course, and Hunter Goodman, he's going to come back, obviously, and then Zach Veen, he'll be back. He's pre-arbitration eligible and projected to hit 820,000. And then moving on to starting pitchers, you have Kyle Freeland, who has, I believe, 16 million guaranteed money. Sindatella, who's going to be moved over to the bullpen. He has 12 million guaranteed. And then you do have Ryan Feltner, who is arbitration eligible, and he's projected to hit a little over 2 million. McKay Brown and Chase Dollander, along with Tanner Gordon, are all pre-arbitration eligible, since they're still rookies, technically. And then you have the relief pitchers, Jimmy Herget. I think he's going to come back next year, Tom, and I'm curious to see what you think about Jimmy Herget, but I have him coming back. I think he's the guy that you want to have in the Rockies bullpen. Given the year that he's had, he was definitely the best reliever in that bullpen. Basically, all the guys that you see in the bullpen right now, you have Gilbreth, Agnos, Blaylock, Chivilli, Contreras, Criswell, Darnell, Halverson, Hill, Mejia, Anthony Molina, Carson Palmquist, Peralta, Rolison, and Bodnik. I believe all those guys are going to be coming back next year, unless if the Rockies swing a trade or something in the offseason. But yeah, again, the Rockies, they have a cost-controlled core, if you want to put it that way, with Tovar, Doyle, and Dollander, and all that. And I think it forms a foundation for 2026. And you do want some experience, which we'll get to in a second, with the shopping list, free agent shopping list. But non-tenders are possible, Tom. I think it's possible, especially for arbitration eligible players, if performance doesn't justify the cost. If I'm going to put it that way, but I think you could agree with me that most are probably expected to return to the team next year. I believe the Rockies don't have any dead money. Of course, I think they're still paying Arenado. Was it $5 million? I think this upcoming season. I think this will be the last year. It was either this year or next year will be the last year we'll be paying Arenado. But the Rockies will have some flexibility heading in the offseason. So, Tom, I'm going to hand it off to you here. Who do you have leaving, and who do you have returning for the Rockies? So,
first to answer Wild's question is $27 million for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
For each of the next 3 years. Let me clarify. It's not over the 3 years. It's all three. So. When it comes down to a situation like that, it's just going to depend what an owner's specifics are when it comes to eating up the money to make a player go away. Every owner is social. I will say this is a little bit of a vibe of optimism. It's not going to be nearly as much that Artie Moreno's had to absorb for Anthony Rendon. I will say so. So maybe that'll bring. I'm not saying that'll make it any less painful. It'll just maybe bring you some comfort knowing that there are worse scenarios as far as bad contracts. It's so it is what it is. I'm gonna start looking at whoops, sorry, lost my place there. Looking at the specifics with the mostly with the starters. I gotta be honest, I don't have too many of them coming back. Marquez is gone. I think they're gonna try and move on from because I'll say Freeland's still coming back. He's got 2 years, he's got $16 million left. He'll be coming. Maybe they can try and get him a trade. Tanner Gordon will be back. Chase Dolan will be back. Bradley Black, I think they said. I got a suspicion that Anthony Molina might not be back.
Ooh.
Whether it's they put him on waivers and he's claimed. I think there's a possibility because they've tried him in different roles. They tried him as a long man. They tried him as an opener. They tried him as a starter and as a middle reliever. I think they're probably looking to turn the page, quote unquote, turn the page on that one. When you look at the top relievers, Vodnik, Halverson, Herget, they'll be back. Criswell, he's just, I don't know what his injury, what the status is of his rehab. And same thing with Dugan Darnell. Agnos will be back. Mejia, I would not be surprised if they put him on waivers at some point, maybe. Peralta will be back. Chivini, that's a tricky one.
Yeah.
I think it's going to depend when they bring in the new pitching coaches, when they decide who the
Yeah.
new pitching coaches are going to be. I think they'll
Hmm.
evaluate it that way. But
Yeah.
it would not surprise me if he gets waived as well. But
Yeah.
Jaden Hill will be back. McCade Brown, who came in a tough spot, I think he'll be back. And then Antonio Santella. Hold on, let me double check his contract status. I have it pulled up.
I'm gonna step in very quickly because that's one thing I
Sure.
forgot. I forgot to mention. With all this moves going on for the Rockies here, Tom,
Mhm.
you would think that with the new GM or president of baseball operations, he's going to get a completely new staff. I mean, there's a possibility Warren Schaefer does come back and he might be like, yeah, I like Warren Schaefer. But the Rockies, they're going to have a brand new, because again, they fired their hitting coach, Hensley Mullins, earlier this year. Clint Hurdle was interim hitting coach. So that's one thing that the Rockies fans, Tom, that they should think about. It's like, hey, the Rockies are going to have a almost completely new staff next year.
Well, yeah,
And
and
so,
then since it's how the thing about
Mhm.
Freeland, he has 16 million this year, and he has a vesting option based on innings pitched 27. He'll be back. He'll probably says this, but with Sensatella, he has a $12 million for 26, and then he has a team option for 27. It would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if the new GM convinces Dick Monfort to DFA him and just eat the remaining $12 million.
Yep.
I'm not sure what the buyout would be of that team option, and I'm not. I have to double check that, but I think they will. I think there's a solid chance, again, with the coaches, they will probably DFA on Antonio Sensatella. He had some good starts and everything. Now, here's where things get tricky for me. We'll get to this in our shopping list. Hunter Goodman, obviously, I don't even need to address anything. I think we all know my answer. He's coming back. You know, and I think you and I both agreed in our pre-show meeting. We'll talk about this in the shopping list. We both agree that the Rockies are going to get some veteran catcher to back up Hunter Goodman. Braxton Fulford, it wouldn't surprise. I mean, first of all, we got to see what the offseason plan is for Drew Romo, what their training program is for him, how they're going to address it. Because going next year, Drew Romo and Braxton Fulford, if they want to make a push for the major league to come back to the major leagues, they've really got to show progress. It would
spring training. Yep.
For spring training, it would not surprise me if those two are. I don't want to be too critical here, but the jury's still on those guys. They'll be back and everything. As far as in the organization, I don't know if they're going to still be. If they'll both still be on the 40-man, if they're going to waive one of them to get them off the 40-man, but they're probably going to have to do it with one of them if they want to add a veteran. So we'll see. Caro's he's safe. Blaine Grimm is safe. Bernabel is safe. Arcia, we know he's gone. Freeman is safe. Here's the thing: both Estrada and Kyle Farmer have mutual options for 26. I think, which just to explain it, you have team options and you have player options. You have vesting options. So how that works, just to give a quick crash course: the club option is when the club chooses to renew that year or not. The player, you choose to opt in or out, or the mutual. Both sides have to agree. I think the Rockies are gonna back out of the mutual option for both players. I think both players are gonna become free agents. So I don't think Farmer and Estrada are going to be back. And it's, as you pointed out, Estrada, injuries happen, and I wish him the best of luck on his rehab, but I don't think he'll be back. Tovar, don't need to even address it. He'll be fine. No, in terms of coming back, let me rephrase that. Let me clarify. Ritter, he'll be part of the depth. Beck, Doyle, they're all good. Moniak will be back. Let me see. There was one more. Oh shoot, there was one. But to answer the question about KB, we have to wait and see what the doctors say, because here's the thing. I know when a chronic back injury can be just not a career ender, but a career crippler, whereas it's going to severely limit, especially at Chris Bryant's age of now 33. He's past 10 years, so I think he gets that 10 years of service time. His pension is vested.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say on him is just, again, it's all going to depend on what the doctors say, in my personal opinion. That's the only thing I'll say on Chris Bryant. And hold on, I think you and I touched let me just touch one more thing. There is one more thing I want to double check with the 40-man. There was one more player I wanted to address, because we didn't see much of him. Carson, here's the thing: Carson Palmquist. Someone brought up the idea that he maybe kicked off the I saw him
40-man roster. Yeah,
he's still on the 40-man. I don't see that being an issue. They're gonna because he's a lefty. They're going
Yeah.
to want to see what they can get out of him
Yeah.
because you're going to need
Yeah.
lefties down the road for the starting rotation. But other
Yeah.
than that, I think here's a surprise. This is what I was going to bring up. I don't know if they're because I have to double check who is Rule 5 eligible. I think Aaron Schunk
Yeah.
is getting close.
Mm-hmm.
I have to double check. I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head, but
Yeah. I think the
I th-
Rockies have one or two people, because I know last year Zach Veen was Rule 5 eligible, and that's why he had to be put on the 40-man roster last year.
I think Yankel Fernandez is getting close too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
Wow
if
says, yeah, that surgery was quite invasive. Yeah, with I think he's talking about the KB surgery.
yeah, because it was it was 2 discs in his lower
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
But again, if it wouldn't be surprised, again we have to double check the Rule 5 eligibility. But I hope Shunk, I would like to keep Shunk in the organization, but it wouldn't surprise me based on what moves they're going to make if he and Fernandez get waived, and I hope they don't get claimed. But it would not surprise me if that happens. But again, I'm just making predictions. I would love to keep both, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. We could see the new guy, whether he's going to be the Pobo or I'm calling it the Pobo, or the new GM. He could go wild here and then trade Britton Doyle. I mean, he could do that. That's always, and again, that I don't want to give Rockies fans nightmares here or Britton Doyle, truthers out there, but it could happen. And if he sees something and the Rockies can get a good package for Britton Doyle, or dare I say Jordan Beck, I don't think he's going to get traded. But like, if there's a good package, he might go for it. Or he might trade some prospects away. He might trade, either Benny Montgomery or Sterling Thompson, who I like. I know you like him, Tom. And there could be multiple prospects that could be dealt with. I mean, the Rockies could make a bunch of trades. That's the exciting part of it, because again, the Rockies they've been loyal to a fault, but I think there could be definitely some interesting things here. And while the Anderson said Doyle at the deadline, I don't know, man. I mean. Yeah.
Well, just to reiterate, this is Doyle. 2026 is Doyle's last pre-arbor. 2027, he's arbitration eligible.
Yeah.
And one thing, Stephen, we don't want to upset the Britton Doyle fan club.
No, I'm a part of the fan club.
Please stay on our side, everybody. We're not starting a move. We're not starting a charge here to have him move from the roster. But the only thing I think is just with his off year, and as you mentioned to me over text, this is his first year he's not nominated for a Gold Glove. That's not his fault. Again, Doyle, Brett, I hope you and your family are all okay. We wish you the best. I think he's still a centerpiece. He's in center field opening day.
100%. Yeah, and I mean, again, it's kind of funny to see all these people, already jumping on the bandwagon on X or Twitter or whatever you call it, saying, "Oh, Chase Dollander's a bust. Balmquist is a bust." I'm like, guys, these guys have barely played. Or Zach Veen's a bust. I'm like, guys, if Zach Veen barely played a couple weeks in regular baseball, it's like he's a rookie. Give him time. And I think was a Troy Rank of the Denver Post. I disagree with him very much on saying that, Bill Schmidt, like, while we can all agree Bill Schmidt was not a good GM, considering the 3 years, or the 4 years that he was, the general manager here, the Rockies continually got worse. But I will give Schmidt his flowers in saying that the Rockies did have good drafts with Bill Schmidt. The problem with the Rockies, Tom, is not the draft, it's the development of these players. Some of them have panned out, some of them not. Like Jordan Beck, probably, I think, Buster Olney of ESPN said that Jordan Beck is, I think, the only Rockies prospect that is on the Rockies team that has either been or close to a 0 point whatever WAR, like, 0 WAR, because a lot of them have been negative WAR. That leads to development, and I think that's one of the things that the Rockies should look for when they hire their new guy next week, is player development. Obviously the draft. I wouldn't have been upset, Tom, and I don't think you would have either, if the Rockies were to consider bringing Bill Schmidt back as a scout, just put him back where he was, because again, what's his name? Jim Bowden, right? Is that his name?
Oh yeah, he's Jim Bowden. He now works for CBS Sports.
Yeah, he was on Foul Territory a few months back and said, Bill Schmidt, he's not a great GM, but he's a great scout. I would want him on my team as a scout. And I think that's where he thrived in. I mean, again, he was the guy that found Nolan Arenado, Charlie Blackmon, Troy Tulowitzki, All these great Rockies, back in the day, so Bill Schmidt, it's just like, the Rockies, the problem with them, was they hired internally. Okay, you're the next guy, or Dick Monford's next best friend. Jeff Bridich. And then it went to Bill Schmidt. So now, hopefully we're going to see it through till next week that the Rockies are going to do something different. But yeah, I mean, it's just yeah. So for all the people that are doubting on Doyle or Tovar, they're still young. I mean, again, maybe unless if the new guy sees something there, they're going to get their playing time. They're going to be better. I think Doyle's going to have a bounce back year next year, barring any injuries or whatever. Tovar had a couple good moments this year, despite he was out for a majority of the part of the year with injury. He had multiple injuries this year, but Tovar had a good stretch at one point. Brent Doyle at 1 or 2 weeks this year was arguably the best hitter in baseball. And yeah, so it's just a down year for those guys. And Chase Dollander, again, you look at that ERA on the road, Tom. Chase Dollander had a sub-4 ERA, a really good ERA on the road. The problem is pitching at Coors Field, which is obviously not as surprising at all. But Chase Dollander, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. I think Chase Dollander is going to be a great pitcher for us. It's just his rookie year, and so. Before anybody goes out and says, "Oh, these guys are bust," why don't you take a look at the numbers? And Chase Dollander, look at his road numbers. And then
it's not even a full year.
Not even a full year. He's still going to be a rookie heading into the next year. Same thing with Zach Veen and all that. So, yeah, and the best players have their down years too. I guess we're gonna, if there's not anything else here in our second segment, we're gonna jump into our free agent shopping list for the Rockies. And I know this is a topic a lot of Rockies fans are very curious about. I know a lot of those who are, either watching from Instagram or YouTube or X, they always like to hear which free agents do you think the Rockies are going to go after? And obviously, that's going to be a question mark with the new guy that's going to come in. Is he going to be aggressive? Is he going to come out and say, "Hey, I'm an aggressive guy, but since we're in a rebuild, we're not going to be super aggressive this year. But in the fall, once we build our payroll and our revenue, we're going to start spending more in 2027, 2028." But Tom, I'm going to start off here with, again, with the catcher position, which we both mentioned earlier. I would not be surprised if the Rockies go out and get a veteran catcher to back up Hunter Goodman. I know a lot of people would like to see Romo or Braxton Fulford, but they still need to prove their spot as a backup. And I think there's still some growth for both of those guys, especially Drew Romo having a very miserable year. That's putting it kindly in AAA Albuquerque. So here's a couple names that I cooked up. Danny Jansen, he I believe he's on the Brewers, right? He's a solid backup. He has a 752 OPS in his career. And he could split time with Hunter Goodman, and he's affordable, Tom. And I think he would definitely be like a minor league or a 1 year type of deal. So Danny Jansen, again, former Blue Jays as well. He could be a good solid option. And of course, I'm not going to spoil it here. I'm just going to go out and say James McCann. He is a veteran, and he's spent a lot of years in the big leagues, and he's been an all-star. And he has experience handling pitching staffs. And he's a low cost option for the Rockies if they want to go the veteran backup catcher route. And then this is a possibility. This is probably the least likely. And maybe some Rockies fans would be excited about this, maybe some not. But I do have Elias Diaz as a potential option. And coming back to the Rockies, he's familiar, obviously, with Coors Field, and he does have a decent bat. So, it does, is a bridge option for the Rockies. For Drew Romo or Braxton Fulford when they get more time in AAA. So those are the guys I have. So Tom, who do you have at the catcher position?
Well, just to reiterate, I do agree with McCann because the Rockies are going to need a veteran to complement Hunter Goodman, and they will have Fulford and Romo as veteran minor league depth. There was one that's a pipe dream, but he has a club option that I think with the Rays getting picked up. That's Taylor Wall, so I'm not even going to talk in depth on him. To pivot away from more of the veteran, low cost, upwards of veteran style, I think Victor Caratini could be a good veteran option. He's not the same offensive player that he kind of once was in terms of production, but he is a more of a defensive version, and it comes to a veteran who works well with pitchers. Again, he has caught a no hitter. He caught Joe Musgrove's no hitter with the Padres. So those are, I would say, again, we have to wait and see who gets DFA, who's non-tendered, who's this. But in terms of the ones we know are going to, why don't we throw in Gary Sanchez? I'm kidding. We're not throwing Gary Sanchez in the mix.
At one point, he was considered by the Rockies, but it was
I'd rather stay away from him. Anyway, but when it comes, those are my two ideas. Who knows? But Elias Diaz, just point out, has a mutual option with the Padres.
Yep.
So
and they love Elias Diaz over there. So
it wouldn't surprise me if they hold on to him.
Yep.
So that's my set of it. The catching market at the moment is not extremely deep in terms of free agents, but I think the Rockies will add a veteran to supplement the young Hunter Goodman.
Yeah. And then moving on to another position, I think the Rockies might look out in the free agent market is the infield. I think first base, that's definitely an interesting thing. I know that there was talk about the Rockies are going to have competition at first base in spring training. Obviously Toglia, I think Toglia again needs to prove that he belongs in that first base, and he has not really proved that. I mean, 2024 he had that big year, but this past year it was just so miserable that Toglia went back to AAA. So here's a couple names I could see if the Rockies want to go to the free agent round at first base. And again, these are veteran players that would probably be on like a minor league or a 1-year deal. First one is actually Paul Goldschmidt. I know he had a 1-year deal with the Yankees. I'm curious to see if the Yankees are going to hang on to him. And he's still productive. He's declining, obviously, but he's still productive, and he can bring some pop, especially he's had good numbers against the Rockies in as many years he's played against us. And he does have championship experience, and he does bring leadership to a young clubhouse, Tom. And I think he definitely fits the veteran mold the Rockies need. So I put Paul Goldschmidt there. Eugenio Suarez, that would be another option here. Obviously with the Mariners, with good defense, Gold Glove defense, and if the Rockies could want to make a trade with a top prospect, not a Condon or a Holiday, obviously, but if they want to do something like that, they could. And so they could do that. Justin Turner is a possibility if they want to put somebody at third base or a DH. With the Cubs, he's a cheap 1-year option to platoon or maybe a DH. Ty France, this is a name I know Adam would love to be on our team. First baseman, age, I think he's 31, 32 years old. Contact hitter who could thrive in Colorado. A very low risk signing for depth. And then, of course, re-signing Kyle Farmer, that would be probably the more realistic. Already is familiar with the Rockies. And then we do have a comment here from Wild here. He put up Pete Alonso. I think he's probably going to get paid, Tom. I don't think Colorado is going to be the place where he lands. I think he's going to get paid wherever he lands at. So, but that would be a dream. That would be a dream selection, like dream pickup for the Rockies to get Pete Alonso, given the fact that he has hit moonshots in the games that he's played at Coors Field. But I love your take, Wild. I love it.
Why not shoot for the stars?
Why not? Maybe the new GM will be like that. I don't know. Rockies hire Tom as the next person of baseball operations. Done.
Just remember, if you want to sign Pete Alonso, he does have Scott Boras as his agent. Just remember.
Yeah. And then some other names here: Josh Bell, first base option. Go big or go home. There you go.
Yes. Wow, that's true.
That's true. Some potential other options here, either infield or outfield slots here. Tyler O'Neill is a possibility. With the Orioles. This past year, he does have power. He does have speed. You could have some 1 or 2 year deal with upside flip for him. Max Kepler, previously with the Phillies, he's a good left-handed bat. He can stabilize both corners of the outfield. Jesse Winker, I feel like we've had I know, Tom, I feel like the last couple of years whenever we've done off-season pods, whenever we've talked about free agency, I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but I feel like Jesse Winker's been on that conversation, right? I feel like we've mentioned his name multiple times.
A couple of times it was mentioned, yes.
Yeah. So obviously previously with the Mets, he does have, he's an on-base machine. He does get on base quite a bit. He can play left field or DH. So that's a possibility there too. Then Josh Bell, that's a name that I think a lot of people in the Rocky Mountain region have mentioned. Former teammate of Trevor Story when they were in college together. Josh Bell is a possibility. He's kind of he's available right now. I think he's 34, 35 years of age. He's a switch hitter, does have course friendly power, and he is obviously an offensive boost on a short contract. And the Rockies could definitely use him, especially with an offense that was arguably the worst in baseball next to the Pirates this past year. So why not go with Josh Bell there? And then for starting pitchers, obviously the Rockies are probably going to lose at least one starting pitcher this year in Herman Marquez. A couple names here: Jordan Montgomery could be he's going to be a low cost rebound option. I think we've also mentioned him before too. Frankie Montas has a possibility, but I feel like he would be more of a larger market signing. I feel like Tyler Anderson from Rocky, he could be an option here. Or the Rockies could either re-sign Herman Marquez, even though I don't think that will happen. Or I know for a fact, I think either you or Adam have mentioned his name before, Tom, but that's Michael Lorenzen. I think he is a productive pitcher. He can relieve. He does have experience. He's a long reliever. He's had that experience doing that before. He adds depth through the rotation / bullpen. So Michael Lorenzen's a name. So yeah, and then obviously I'm going to wrap up with. I don't think, a couple of names here. Scott Alexander, the Rockies could bring him back in the bullpen, but I feel like the Rockies are pretty much set to go in the bullpen. And I think the Rockies are probably they should probably maybe make like 2 or 3 signings this offseason, Tom. Maybe 20 to 30 million maybe this year, and stay under I think it's like $110 payroll. Maybe trade some pieces here. And obviously 2026 is going to be about progress, not the playoffs, Tom. So I'm going to hand it off to you here with, I think you left off at, was it the infielders? I think it was the infielders. So you take the rest from here.
And just to be sure, Taylor Walls, I forgot he is an infielder, not a catcher, so it was my mistake on that one. I had him on the list as an infielder, but he is a club option, and he had 2.6 WAR. I don't know if the Rays let him go. So when it comes to infielders, I'm not as Josh Bell would be a good idea, but when it comes to infielders, 2 specific middle infielders I like to go. It would be nice. It's strange. I keep forgetting that he is a free agent. That is Luis Ariz. I don't think he is anytime in the future in the Padres' future plans. He is going to be 29. He is not going to be cheap. His market value AAV is projected to be 14 million. So why not add somebody who will add some contact to our lineup? Again, as Wild said, why not swing big a little bit here and go hard, go big or go home?
Yep.
If you want a more affordable option, this guy has kind of flown under the radar as far as production of last several years, particularly since he left Pittsburgh, is now with Kansas City. That's Adam Frazier. He's a lefty bat, can play second base. Not as good of a third baseman, but he can also play left field if need be necessary. So I don't think he can play right field. But again, that's another low-cost option that I think would be a good pickup for us. Josh Bell, I do agree with you. That'd be my only idea to add a veteran first baseman, because I don't know if he's going to draw a lot of interest from top-tier contending teams.
Yep.
And here's one third. This might be kind of a eye opener for some people, but
Nolan Arenado.
No, not well. Wouldn't that be lovely?
In the perfect world.
You could say, some depth at their basement. IKF Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, he's going to be 31 next year. So that's just maybe a veteran depth option for somebody who's kind of you could say a Tyro Estrada type signing. But I don't know if I might get some flack for this, but former White Sox third baseman Yohan Moncada could be an option. Looking at his numbers for this year, he didn't have too much injury trouble like he's had in previous seasons. He played 84 games this year. He went to the clip of 234, 336, 448. He hit 12 home runs and drove in 35 RBIs. He does add a fair amount of strikeouts, 75 strikeouts in 84 games, but he does add a considerable amount of walks. He had 32 in 84 games. He is a reliable defender. He does have a little bit of an injury bug, and I don't know how he would deal with playing at altitude, but again, at the same time, why not just give him a shot, see what it's not going to cost much. His projected AAV is going to be around 3 million. So those are some ideas, because the Rockies aren't ready to swing big just yet. So we'll see. And yes, we know that several years ago, the payroll was much higher, but that's when we had some sizable contracts still on the books.
Yeah. And I think, whoever we hire, I think is probably, I think in time they're going to raise the payroll, obviously, because obviously, the key is, well, the first thing is that you want to entice some pitchers here, which is going to be hard to do. But with the new guy, there might be some, guys in the offensive side that like, hey, I'd love to play for James Click or whoever we hire, and playing at Coors Field, and that's the fun thing too. I'm super excited about, but yeah, it's just I think in terms of payroll, we're probably going to see increase in that over the next few years. As once we see, I think once we see progress, Tom, and starting to see, okay, now there's a future here. Whoever we hire, if we feel like the farm system is improving and our play development is getting better, and we're starting to see these prospects come through and actually make their debuts and have a hold in that lineup, I think then we can start saying, okay, now we can start thinking about building our payroll. And so, and for the news to come out today by Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post that the Rockies are going to be hiring an officer that is going to be like a guy for strategy and for revenue and for analytics, that's awesome news. I mean, I think the key is obviously you want to, again, shy away Dick Monfort from that because I feel like he's had a voice in that, like almost every single baseball operations you can think of, whether it's the payroll, obviously Dick Monfort was going to be controlling that still. Like he's going to give the money to the president of baseball operations and the GM and saying, okay, this is how much money you have to spend, so on and so forth. But I think, again, you look at some of these small to mid-market teams, they don't have a lot of spend. And sometimes like the Brewers, I mean, they don't spend a whole lot of money. And yet they're in the playoffs almost every single year. And they're consistent. And so, I think it really, the Rockies, if they have, again, autonomy with this guy, I'm not saying Dick Monfort should be erased from our minds. We don't have to worry about that. But still, like, as long as Dick Monfort does not have a voice in the baseball operations room, I think the Rockies are going to be fine. And, you do look at, years when the Rockies did make the playoffs. Dick Monfort still had a conversation in a lot of those conversations, obviously. But you look at the players that we had, and, we were, I don't know if I should use this word lucky, but like we were good. And here Dick Monfort was our owner, and he had a much larger voice than I feel like he does now with the Rockies. And we were in the playoffs, and we were very, very good. I mean, 2018, the Rockies arguably could have been a team that could have gone to the NLCS or World Series, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But I feel like, the Rockies, they're going to have this opportunity to where they can, turn this thing around, build their payroll and revenue. And I think, Tom, I think we all can agree that this year really hurt them. Not a lot of fans showed up. And if they did, it was opposing team fans. And I think Dick Monfort and Walker Monfort noticed that. And they're like, hey, we need to make changes. And I think we've mentioned this before many times, is that we feel like, stepping down, when they use the term stepping down, it's more like they approached Bill Schmidt, they approached Zach Rosenthal saying, hey, we're going to go outside the organization. We thank you for what you've done for us, but we need to move on, and we were looking in a new direction. So Wild says if they get the window open again, the salaries go up. Yep. And I think, for those who are wondering, okay, when can we expect the window to open? When can we start thinking about playoffs again? I think it really depends on next year, Tom. I think it really depends on, are the Rockies going to improve? Are the Rockies going to have a 2025 White Sox season to where, they're still bad, but they improve drastically in some areas? Then that's when you can start, okay, there's a little bit of future here. You get a little bit more money. And the thing is, Tom, however, the Rockies are still in a tough division. You still have the Dodgers. You have Arizona is still competitive. The Giants are still going to be there. The Padres. However, again, we've mentioned multiple times that, the Padres might be on the downhill. Now with Xander Bogaerts having that massive contract, and with Mike Schilt situation, obviously it was not the Padres' reason. It wasn't really the Padres' fault. And Mike Schilt was just never a good manager. Especially given the new article that came out the other day about the situation and his environment that he had in San Diego. But the Rockies are still in the National League West, and I feel like the Rockies, they're going to improve. But I feel like if the Rockies really want to have a chance at winning a division title, it's going to come when we get expansion in the next, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. When we move divisions to whatever division we'll be in. And more than likely, I think Kansas City, I think a lot of people have us in the same division as Kansas City, maybe the Rangers and the Astros. That's much more comfortable or more competitive for the Rockies rather than the the battle of the National League West, if you want to call it that. But yeah, Tom, I mean, it's going to be it really. Again, 1 week away, man. We might have our answer for who's going to be the next guy, who's going to be the guy that's going to lead this Rockies team in the future. So should be exciting here. Again, we're talking Rockies baseball here on the Rockies Now podcast. We appreciate every single one of you for listening on in today. If you don't follow us or subscribe to us on YouTube, feel free to do so. We are almost at 150 subscribers. We love and appreciate your subscribe and your follow. And then, for Instagram side of things, we're going over there. We appreciate you, all of you who are watching over there. For Wild, he says, how long to get back to 500? That's my next benchmark. Yeah, I mean, I think you want to have realistic benchmarks rather than, a Dick Monfort comment like, oh, I think we're going to be better than a 500 team this year. I think for the Rockies to get back to 500, I think it's going to be till 2027. I really do. I think next year is probably going to be another 100 loss season or close to that, 90 plus 100 loss season. But again, you should have a benchmark. You should have goals that you want to do, but your goal is just to build and improve rather than like, hey, we need to be at a specific record to deem it as a successful season. Obviously, if the Rockies were like a 70-90 win team, obviously we know that would be a massive improvement, or close to a 500 team. Obviously, that would be a great thing, and that's something that would be definitely. I feel like it'd be something that we would overachieve. It's like we were not expecting that, but I think, Tom, next year is going to be one of those, another bad year, but I think we're going to see some improvements, especially if we hire the right person. And again, he does have autonomy in the front office.
I would say get under 100 losses first before you think about 500.
Yep. And, unfortunately, it might happen again. And there's probably going to be another, like, again, if this happens again, if we have another 100 loss season, I'm sure there's going to be Rockies haters saying, oh, I told you, Monforts are still there. It's just, it happens. I mean, the Orioles, they had multiple 100 loss seasons, but the key is drafting, developing, and then their guys came up and they turned that thing around, and they made the playoffs again.
Their problem was just they couldn't sustain it. That was
exactly, and that's the thing that the Rockies are going to have to learn how to do. And I think the challenge is of Coors Field, and I think you can do it. You can do it. It's not going to be easy. It's probably going to be one of the most difficult jobs in baseball, and that's the thing too. Like, that's probably going to be the hardest thing in the game of baseball, is sustaining success at Coors Field in Colorado, which has never been done before. And a lot of it has to do, unfortunately, because we've had bad people in the front office or an ownership, right? But that's going to be a challenge, and I think that's going to be also exciting for the new guy. I think he's going to look forward to that and sustaining that challenge, because if he does, Tom, if the Rockies get back to the playoffs and heck win a World Series the next, 5-6 years, can you imagine what he's going to get paid, man? Whoever that's going to be. A lot of teams are going to want him, saying, hey, if he could do it to the Rockies, he can do it to our team, kind of like Moneyball, where Billy Beane, got approached by the Red Sox, right? And, in the movie, he was given the largest GM contract in the history of sports, right? And it's almost like that situation here with the Rockies. Like, this is a prime opportunity for an executive right now in baseball for them to go to Colorado and turn this thing around. And if they do, I mean, you're talking, you might be one of the most famous GMs or president of baseball operations in baseball history if you can do that. So it's all going to come up to how much will Dick Monfort, give leverage. And if Walker Monfort is kind of taking over that position of ownership, or I should say having more of a voice than Dick Monfort in baseball ownership, I think the Rockies, they have a chance to do something special here and turning this franchise around that has unfortunately known nothing but losing in the last 30 plus years of existence. And we've had good years. We've had 5 postseason appearances, but, and 1 World Series appearance, but really no championships or National League West titles to talk about. And we were so close, Tom. We were 1 game away from winning that National League West title in 2018. But again, it's all about autonomy here. So, as we wrap up here tonight on the Rockies Now podcast, Tom, do you have any final comments or anything that you have anything to say about the Rockies as we head into late October?
Well, real quick, I just want to name one possibility for outfielder shopping list. I
Mhm.
would maybe add Lane Thomas from the Washington Nationals. I think he is officially going to be an unrestricted free agent as far as this goes, so I would think him. And then here's an interesting left-handed reliever that I think the Rockies could look into is Gregory Soto. I don't know if you remember him.
Yep,
He was
Tigers.
an
Yep, the Phillies.
all-star, Tigers all-star. I would definitely give him a look as far as
Mhm.
adding to the pen. I think he had little bit of a down year as far as things go with the Phillies when he got traded over there because the Phillies were trying to upgrade their bullpen. I just double check. Yeah, Lane Thomas is an unrestricted free agent with the Cleveland Guardians. He will command a projected salary of 2.5. I would give those two guys a look, and one candidate probably nobody's ever heard of as far as adding to the pen. I would go with Hobie Milner. He is a left-handed. I'm sorry. He's a left-handed pitcher from the Texas Rangers,
Yeah,
so I would give
yeah.
him a shot. And
Mhm.
yeah, so there's always ways you can shop at the bargain bin at the grocery store. I mean,
Yeah.
sorry, sorry, not the grocery store, the outlet.
Yeah, the outlet. Love it. Yeah, and again, we're coming out to a point, Tom, where we're, coming up in the last couple weeks of the season, and the off season to start, and again, the Rockies have to make their decision very, very soon because again, it's GM's meeting is going to be in, I believe, Las Vegas, in the
I think
next.
it's either Vegas or San Antonio this year.
Yeah, because I know for a fact the winter meetings is going to be in Orlando. I know that for a fact, or the Nashville, Orlando. It goes off between each years.
It was just in Nashville. Let me check.
So I think it's going to be in Orlando.
Okay.
But yeah, so the Rockies,
It's Orlando, yeah.
Orlando, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Rockies, they have their decision, and they're probably, again, they're going to have their decision probably by the end of next week or shortly thereafter. And by that time, you're starting to head into free agency, and that's when a lot of decisions are going to be made. And for those who are wondering, that might be new to baseball or whatever, why aren't there any trades or moves happening? Well, obviously during the postseason, your team, you're not allowed to make trades, and whatever. So you can't really make any large moves until after the World Series is done. I believe it's like 3 to 5 days after the World Series is done that you can start making moves. But I think free agency starts the day after.
Free agency opens 9 a.m. the day after the last out of the World Series is made.
Yep. And by the way, thanks to Wild the Innocent for hanging out with us here on the chat, and we appreciate Wild here. If you want to comment with us, feel free to do so. We have some comments here. We do have a few minutes here because we do want to get to our little brand new segment that we're going to introduce to you guys here on Rockies Now podcast. Is our little trivia segment here, and it's going to be something brand new. We're going to add to the podcast. We might do at the start or either at the end of each episode. So we're going to introduce that today. But yeah, Charlie Condon, he's been having a great Arizona Fall League, and apparently they had the hurricane down there, which is crazy in Arizona, because I know for several days they had nothing but rain and they had to cancel out a bunch of games. But Jared Thomas, he hit a grand slam as well in yesterday's game. But yeah, Tom, Charlie Condon is looking pretty good, and we told y'all he was going to be good. And I know a lot of people out there were doubting and hating on him as he's a bust pick by the Rockies, or he can't hit with the wood bat. But I think Charlie Condon is going to be just fine.
It's an adjustment.
Yeah, and I mean, if you saw his swing yesterday, I mean that I would not be shocked if that went out of the ballpark. And I forget, I couldn't recognize the stadium, but I know it wasn't at Saltwater Fields. I know that for sure. But yeah, Charlie at first base. That's I think this year, Tom. I think when he was in Hartford, he played first base majority of the year. But yeah, Charlie Condon. But yeah, let's Tom. Let's head into our last segment here, or a little trivia segment. So it's gonna be fun. I'm curious to see where we're gonna go.
Okay, so here's the segment. We thought of an idea because I'm not from Colorado. Steven is.
Yeah.
We're gonna do the thing. Tom, it's kind of a funny rhyme. Tom's got some trivia for Steven. Okay. So anyway, so like I said, I am from Chicago, as most people know, and I been a Rockies fan since I was a teenager. Steven is from Denver. He's been a Rockies fan since he was a little kid. So I figured, why don't I quiz him on a little bit of trivia? So Steven, this is a career question. This has to do with Rockies career numbers. So just keep that in mind. So of the top, all the players just playing for the Rockies, can you name the top 5 players in Rockies history who have played the most games with the Rockies? Top 5.
Okay.
You can start from 1, or you can start at 1 and go down, or you can start at 5 and go up.
Okay.
It's just, it doesn't matter.
The easiest one will be from 1 to 5, I think. So I'm going to start off with Todd Helton.
Todd Helton's number 1.
Charlie Blackmon.
That's number 2.
Carlos Gonzalez.
That is number 3.
No way.
You got 4 and 5
Nolan
to go.
Arenado. Let's throw him out there.
That's close. No, he's number 6.
Oh,
Close.
number
He's
six.
number
Okay.
6. So you just missed the, so you just missed the
Shoot.
mark on that. You
Okay.
just missed the mark on that one. Close.
Who? Jorge De La Rosa.
No, he's not even in the top. No, they're position players. Pitchers aren't. There's no pitchers on this list.
Oh, okay. No pitchers. Okay. I'm sure I'm missing one, and we probably have people screaming in the comments, Steven, this.
It's all good. It's all good.
Huh. So it's okay. Who am I missing? Okay, I have Todd. I have Charlie Blackman. I have Nolan. No, who was the number 3 guy?
Okay, so
I was Nolan,
one,
right? No,
1 through 3 is Helton, Blackman, Cargo.
Oh, Cargo. Okay, and Nolan wasn't on that list. Okay,
Yeah, he's number 6.
Okay. Shoot. Larry Walker on that list?
That's number 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I was about to say if you wanted to.
Okay, Vinny Castillo is number 5.
If you were going to ask him, think the Bash brother of the Rockies.
Okay, for number 5.
That's what I think of Larry Walker. Oh no, number 5. Similar era. Just think similar era right there. It's similar era.
Vinny Castillo.
You got him.
Let's go.
So here's the numbers I'll give if anybody wants to know. Todd Helton played 2,247 games for the Rockies. That's the number 1, obviously. Yeah. Charlie Blackman played 1,624. Carlos Gonzalez played 1,247. Wow. Larry Walker played 1,170. And Vinny Castilla played 1,098 games for Rockies. And as you said, Nolan just missed the cut by several. He played 1,079. But of course, with Cardinals, that number keeps going.
We're gonna have to clip that and post it on our social medias. We'll start doing that in the future. But yeah, this is kind of a brand new segment. But
do you? Yeah, it's like there's some. I mean, there's a couple of guys you would think would be higher.
Yeah, like Nolan surprised me. I'm like,
well, like I said, because with the Cardinals, that number is going to keep going. So, but that's with the Rockies, it stops unless he comes back, which is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, imagine.
But I mean, there's other guys here on this that go from 7 to 10 that played a lot of games with the Rockies, but their careers continue with other teams.
Yeah, that was fun. Like again, we're gonna do some more trivia stuff for each and every episode, either at the beginning or at the end of each episode. But man, that was a lot of fun. And I felt like it was so weird because I got like all one of them like correctly. I was like, Todd Helton's got to be number 1. I know Charlie Blackman I think he was definitely close to Todd Helton. He was getting to that point. But then,
he was about 500 games away.
Oh wow! It doesn't make sense. 17 years and 10.
No, Charlie was under 1,700 and Todd Helton was over 2,200. So there's.
Okay. I was not close.
well, remember, because Todd he played what was it 19 years? So
17 years, yeah, 17 years.
Yeah, ironically, that was his number.
Yeah, 17 years for number 17.
But the two Rocky Hall of Famers are on that list.
Yeah. And then there was Larry Walker and then Vinny Castilla 4 and 5. Man, that was fun. Again, if you want to see more of this stuff, let us know. And again, hit that like button if you want to see more stuff like that here on the podcast. But Tom, it's been awesome. It's been great. Another episode. It was again 92nd episode of the podcast here. We're getting closer to 100, and we're definitely going to have a conversation here privately with Tom and Adam of what we're going to do for our 100th episode. Maybe do a special one. We're going to have to cook something up for you guys. So again, if you don't listen or watch our podcast, we appreciate you for following and subscribing to our channels, and follow us on Instagram and X for all updates and Rockies Now podcast stuff. We are active every single day. If you want to ask us a Rockies question or just baseball question in general, just feel free to hit Tom, me, or Adam up. Again, our information is right below our name here on your screen if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, the best way to contact us is through Instagram or X. So feel free to do so at Rockies Now. Tom, great episode tonight. We'll talk to you all hopefully next week if there are any new updates. And hopefully, again, by this time next week, we might have our new guy. Again, thanks to everyone and for Wild for staying in the comments today and hang out with us. We had a lot of fun. So Wild, thank you so much. And we appreciate you. On behalf of myself, Tom, and Adam, thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Rockies Now podcast. And as always, go Rockies.